All right, my folks. Tonight we want to jump right in as we reveal, explain, illuminate, and simplify the Diakonia report, the new weapon of God. Diakonia. I'm saying the word report, but really it's just the word diakonia. Diakonia is the new weapon of source code, or the big G. As we talk about, and as I wrote out the new book that breaks down the map, that maps out each individual destiny, each individual diakonia, each individual purpose. We're talking about this is the lost spiritual technology of divine service. So this is the lost technology of divine service. And the reason why this technology is so important when we talk about technology, just a fancy way of saying that, way of being now. There's a five ether, there's a higher way of vibrating. What we're talking about is now your reality can be structured in a manner and in a way that allows you to override all negative habit patterns. And so when we talk about that, that simply means that your destiny now gives you more relevance, it gives you more meaning, it gives you more purpose, it gives you a better way of seeing the world. It totally transforms people to transform you when it's applied. Thing in life now is about the application of words. And so again, most people, when we talk about awareness, we're talking about destiny, diakonia, service, everything I'm expressing to you today really has nothing to do with everything that we've been taught in the past. Not that the past isn't relevant, it's just that now the way by which you carry yourself, that gives you the spiritual authority that allows you to be able to move when the outside world is say falling apart. You have to return to the inside world. So that's what we're talking about. So now it's inside. It's inside. When everything is going wrong outside, you have to focus on the inside. And even when going good on the outside, you still have to focus on the inside. So that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about shifting your focus. We want to talk about stepping into the flow of the 26 dimensions of your map. Now, everybody's dimensions are different. I'm using the word 26. I'm using the number 26 because that was a number that was the last report that I've done. So I have 33. So if we take the two numbers from your life path number, that tells you the numbers that precede. That tells you the amount of dispositions or the amount of frequencies that you have. So everybody has a certain amount of frequencies, and everybody's frequency range is different because it's your personal signature. So that's why it carries so much weight. It carries so much weight because this is your spiritual signature. Everybody's spiritual signature is different. The way that everybody operates and vibrates is totally different. It isn't a cookie cutter method. In other words, it's not a one size fits all, and that's the biggest change, the biggest takeaway, the biggest adjustment that has to be made is the adjustment that we have to get away from the cookie cutter way of doing business, because that used to work, way back in the day, but that doesn't work anymore. So the new wave, the new verb, the new vibration is understanding now that, okay, how is it weaponized? And by weaponized, that simply means it's like when the Bible talks about putting on the armor of God. So when you put on the full armor of God, that's the same thing as putting on your identity. So your identity is your new armor. And to the degree that you understand the attributes and characteristics, as we talked about 144 attributes and characteristics, that literally creates armor. It literally creates a shield. And so everybody has these 144 attributes and characteristics that make up your shield. And the word that you use is your sword. And so now that we're moving forward, we have an ability to understand that each and every one of our diakonias, our destinies, is a sword and a shield. So your destiny is your sword and your shield. And it's very important that now that we have to start rebranding it, because your destiny now is, now remember, the sword is the only offensive weapon, because you take the word sword and you turn it around and have to, it turns into the word words. So your destiny, your diakonia, that is your new weapon. It is your sword and your shield. So your job is, okay, now we have to learn how to use, how to wield, how to, take our sword and our shield and use it to be able to move forward when things are going, because the enemy is going to play with your brain. He's going to play with your mind. That's his or her job, is to, get into your head. And so, that's okay. But your job is like, how long does the enemy stay in your head? That's your job. Your job is to limit the amount of time they spend, processing or thinking about negative habit patterns, because your destiny and your diakonia, that's your new sword and your shield. And so once you understand that, okay, now we got to think as like a weapon, because the diakonia is weaponized now. And once you are able to now start thinking in a manner like, okay, my destiny, my diakonia, my identity, my frequencies, my ways, verbs, the words that I'm selecting is creating my world. And so my world is either being established by me in a way that allows me to move forward, or my world is being established in a way that's holding me back. But it's all up to you, because everything's going on inside of your head. Because this is how you talk to yourself. So when things happen outside of your brain, how do you respond? How do you, again, especially when it's unexpected? Because obviously when it's unexpected, of course, it's unexpected. So you're not expecting something to happen, and so when it happens, of course, there's going to be a negative reaction. Your job is to, okay, notice that negative reaction and then make the adjustment as soon as possible. You don't stay that or that whole vibrational state. I'm not saying that you're not supposed to process it. You're not supposed to be aware of it, because again, everybody's process information. Everybody's processing speed of information is different, and it's very, very important that that we understand that everybody's speed that allows them to process information is totally different. Your processing speed is going to be different from my processing speed. But the point is to get to the space, get to that place where we are finally able to see and to use the innate attributes and characteristics, because we are holding them in a higher value. And that's the game. The game is getting to the point where you can see it, because it's very difficult for us to see it. What I mean by see it, simply means that when we look at the way we're wired, everybody's wired differently. Everybody has different attributes and characteristics. That's why the 144 number, word, color chart is so important, because it's important because it allows you to now see the worth and value that God has placed inside of you, because that's how you get through. So the way that you get through is when you are in let's use the word funk, you can, whatever term or whatever word you want to use, and we've all been there, and we'll all be there again. And so once that place, or once you get to that frequency range, once you get to that level of awareness, that's when your diakonia kicks in. And so all it does is it gives you the tools that you need to place your attention. So when things start going left, or when things start going in a way that you're not accustomed to, because remember, we're in a new frequency range, a new level of awareness, if you want that term, because you're stepping out of the old you and now you're operating in the new you. That just simply means that you're aligning your mind with your God-given design. Now, when you align your mind with your God-given design, you're just tapping into your spirit. So every believer is called or has a destiny in a diakonia. But that doesn't mean that every believer, every person that has a personal, private, productive relationship with the big G is going to step up and answer the call. So your operating system that allows you to operate in a high vibration, now that's what we're talking about. That's the destiny. That's established in heaven. And now it's dropping down to earth. So you are here to distribute the attributes and characteristics of heaven on earth. That's why we're here. And so when we're talking about, for example, let's say from a leadership perspective in ministry, the point is to reconstruct your mentality around your true destiny in your diakonia. Even as an entrepreneur, your job is to reframe your work as a diakonia, or to reframe the way that you conduct your business around the attributes and characteristics that make up your destiny report, your diakonia. So you want to use the attributes and characteristics in your job, in your business, in your personal life, in your relationships, because those attributes and characteristics are the way that you are able to operate or walk in the spirit. So you're able to operate, you're able to walk in the spirit when you merge, when you combine all of the attributes and characteristics that's been given to you. So that's your job. Your job is to take these attributes, these characteristics that's been given to you, and merge them into one, to one frequency, one wave, one verb, one vibration. It simply means that instead of, keeping the way that you truly feel, your true authentic self, separate, you are taking off the mask. You're totally removing, the true essence of what you really feel. So that's the challenge. The challenge is to consecrate or to set aside your time, your tools, your skills, your innate attributes and characteristics, and to set them aside by placing them inside of your destiny. The next hurdle is to take your trauma, is to take all of the triggers. So we all have triggers. Your job is to take those triggers, take those things that bother you, and place them inside of the attributes and characteristics that's placed inside of you. So when you step into your true destiny or diakonia, okay, you stop simply asking, you stop worrying, you stop doubting, because it shows up, but it doesn't stay. Because now you've replaced the way that you think, the way that you process information. You're replacing the fear, you're replacing the doubt, you're replacing the unbelief, you're replacing it with faith, you're replacing it with hope, you're replacing it with love, joy, peace. So it's just the ability for you to use a different way of processing information. Because the biggest hurdle, the biggest problem is that we have this treasure, but we're not utilizing it. Because we don't really call it up when we need it. Calling it up simply means that you got to remind yourself that okay, you have a way, you have a circuit. You have a circuitry inside of you. You have this way by which that you can process information so that family, faith, and finances are maximized. That is the lost spiritual technology of divine service. So what we're doing is we are returning to, or we're tapping back into the lost spirituality or the lost technology of divine service. And that's a tall order because, again, we are using the technology of the undivine service. So artificial technology is being promoted over spiritual technology. Let me say it again. So we're living in a day and time where, artificial technology is being promoted in place of spiritual technology. So it's not that it's better, it's just being promoted, it's being advertised. So there's a push. So the dominant culture is dominant because they're using their system. So your job and my job is to get to a space where we start to use God's system. We see their system, but we don't want to promote artificiality over spirituality. And it's going to be, and it is a tall order, because what we're doing is we're looking at the dark side of, let's use the word, the web, versus the light side of the web. So in other words, you're looking at the fact that there's a dark side and then there's a light. So your job is to get to a space where your technology, your awareness, your destiny is being used in a manner that allows you to be able to process information, to stay in a high vibrational state of mind. Because that's the end of the game. The end of the game, the whole purpose is to get to a place where you are able to maintain your brain, to operate in a high vibrational state. Because the enemy's job is to keep you in a low vibrational state. When we talk about high vibration and low vibration, all we're talking about is ways of thought. How do you know? How do you think? How do you process information? How do you see the world? We all process information. We all see the world differently. But your destiny now is the way that you are going to start processing the world. There's a war going on between your destiny and your disposition. So we are at a space and we are at a place where there's a war going on between your destiny and your disposition. Now, the word disposition and the word dimension or dimensions are pretty much the same word. So let me say it again. So when we're talking about dimensions and when we're talking about destinies, we're pretty much talking about the exact same thing. So the battle, the war is for you to over and understand that, okay, when you change dispositions, you change dimensions. Now that's extremely, extremely, extremely important. Because once you understand how this war is being waged against you, then you are able to now understand the power that's inside of the attributes and the characteristics that's been given to you. So let me make sure that, again, that we break this down a little further. When you change dispositions, you change dimensions. That's extremely, extremely important because you remember dispositions. We're talking about a mental disposition. So when you get let's use the word attitude. And so there are 26 different, again, based upon depending on your life. For me, that's 33. So I have 33 different mental dispositions that establish the 33 dimensions. So Every time when you change mental dispositions, you change, let's use the word spiritual dimensions. And then those spiritual dimensions manifest or drop down into the physical dimension. So it's going to change or has the potential to change the outcome. And so that's why there's so different, levels, so many different, manifestations, because we're not paying attention to how we are changing our mental dispositions. So once you understand that every time you change your mental disposition, you're literally changing your spiritual dimensions. So now your job is to focus all of your time, or use all your time to notice. Don't try to control it. Don't try to stop it. Don't try to, like a lot of people, myself included, we spend too much time fighting against the thoughts. And that's not your job. Your job is to choose a superior thought. Your job is not to fight thoughts. Your job is to choose superior thoughts. So when you choose a superior thought, that allows you to change, again, that spiritual dimension. And so now you're able to stay in a higher spiritual dimension. Then that allows you to manifest things that in that spiritual dimension. And so the goal in life is to really, really monitor, if you want that term, or really focus on how your mental dispositions are being manipulated by people, places, and things. And you're not to wage war against people, against places, and against things. Your job is to utilize your new spiritual weapon. And your new spiritual weapon is the 144 attributes and characteristics that's inside of your destiny and the Diakonia report. If we want to simplify it, you start off with just your life path number. And then, you start getting to the point where you can use your entire life optimization circle, where you're able to then actually take and use all of your 12 numbers that's inside of the life optimization circle or life optimization circle. Now, when you start off again, nobody's going to really be able to use all of the numbers because you're still learning. The numbers are translated over into words. So you got to take those numbers and translate those numbers over into words. And words create chakra centers or worlds. So once you master words, bam, then you're able to start to master your world. Then you get into a place where you're able to use your words to control your destiny or your diakonia. Then you're able to unlock let's use the word, secrets of the universe, for lack of a better term. Because the only thing that you're doing is you're just tapping into something that's the sea of information that's already existed. It's already there, but we're just not on that timeline. So the only thing that you're doing is you're tapping into a cycle of abundance, the timeline of abundance. And by tapping into that timeline of abundance, you're able to tap into a new, frequency of harmony. That's all found in the attributes and characteristics of your destiny and your diakonia. And so by tapping into these new frequencies, they're not new, they're just new to you, because now you're getting into the psychological integration of harmony. That simply means that you are choosing to integrate. You're choosing to become one. You're choosing to operate or to vibrate or tap into the frequency of source. That's all you're doing. You're just tapping into the words, because life and death is in the power of tongue. And that's why I love using the words of Scripture, because those words have power because they are used by a lot of people. Those words have a lot of weight. They have a lot of meaning. And so you add your own meaning to those words. Now you use your own words. I'm not talking about mantras. I'm not talking about setting up a ritual or routine. I'm talking about tapping into the flow. The flow, so now you're in the flow state. The Bible says that you should take no thought. So you're in that state where you don't have to take thought. You just operating and vibrating in the flow state. And the way that you get into the flow state is by being cautious of and aware when your feelings are off, when you're starting to worry, you're starting to stress. Then you just ask yourself, okay, something is coming up in the unconscious brain. And usually, it's something in the future. You're aware of something that's slowly coming up. It's a impending doom, and because that's the only reason it will get you out of spiritual and your financial season. So when we start thinking about things that are coming up, whether it's it's coming up, 2 weeks from now or a week from now. And so what happens is it overtakes us because the future starts to control the present. And we start living in a predictable future because we are worrying. We're concerned because, and again, it's not that you're ignoring it, but you're just focusing on the thing that solves it. Because focusing on the problem doesn't solve the problem. Focusing on the solution solves the problem. And then if you don't even know the solution, focusing on source, because God has the solution. The Bible talks about cast all your cares. So it's the ability for you to understand the psychological integration of the attributes and characteristics that's placed inside of you. So you were born, you past tense. It's not like you're trying to get these attributes and characteristics. You already have them. They are cemented in your soul. They're inside of your DNA. So all you're doing is you're turning the codes on. You turn the code on by placing the attention on the code. Okay, what are the codes? The codes are the 144 attributes and characteristics. Because you have 12 of them. The 12 attributes and characteristics are found inside of your diakonia report. Because the first attribute and characteristic is found inside of the month, the day, and the year that you was born. That comes out the two numbers. Those two numbers equals 1. For me, it's the number 3. The number 3 means creativity. Then the number 3, now remember that number 3 has 12 different meanings. So I select out of the 12 different meanings. When I'm selecting the meaning that the meaning of that word that resonates with me the most. And that word creator and the word creative or creativity, 3 and 3 is 6. So out of the 12 words that make up that number 6, the word that resonates with me is compassion. The second one is communication. Those are, we have the word responsible, server, carer, cosmic parent. Those are all words. Now those words make up my world. So that's the spiritual and the psychological way by which I'm able to amplify. I'm able to establish inspiration and enthusiasm by connecting, by activating, by actively and consciously engaging with the higher self, with God, with source. So this is active engagement with the divine. So you want to actively engage. So most of us, we're not actively participating in this creative process with source code. or with the divine. And the way that you actively participate, these are the essential attributes and characteristics of the divine or divine communication. So all of this active engagement by using the attributes and characteristics of the letters and the numbers that was placed inside of you, that I've exposed to you by giving you your diakonia and your destiny report, this unlocks and this gives you clear divine guidance. This is how you learn how to invoke and to provoke, if you want to use that term, which simply means to connect with wealth, health, wisdom, and great relationships, because that's your birthright. Abundance is your birthright. It's not something that is owed to you. It's not something that you get. It's something that you are. So when you truly tap into this, again, all of this is inside of your destiny report. Your destiny report is your diakonia is in your source. It's code that source allows you to tap into to turn into a spiritual weapon that you use on yourself. It's not for anyone else. The spiritual weapon is for you to become the highest and the best version of yourself. That's how you manifest, if you use that term, your desire through ideals, visualization, manifestation. The ideal, as we talked about before, that's nothing but the IDEA. That is EI, identification. So when you identify with source, when you identify with the pleroma, when you identify with the monad, when you identify with the big G, when you identify again with heaven, you're able to drop down and manifest inside of hell, the body. When you identify with heaven, you're able to drop down and then you're able to manifest inside of this frequency wave, verbal vibration that we call the body. So your job is to self-identify with the attributes and characteristics inside of your destiny and your diakonia report. That's your job. It's just that hard and it's just that simple. That's how you become a weapon. You have the ability to turn yourself, your brain, the way your mind, will, emotion, imagination, intellect, into a weapon of God. To step into the flow and activate the dimensions that's inside of you. This is the foundation of being able to take a frequency activation of family, faith, and finances by using the spiritual technology of divine service. Because the word diakonia, that's all it means. It just simply means divine service. So this was part 2 of going through and breaking down the 26 dimensions of the diakonia, or the map of God, to help you understand that now the diakonia has been weaponized. In other words, your diakonia is now, it's your sword and your shield. So we all have a sword. We all have a shield. Our sword and our shield is our destiny. But now it's time for us to utilize, it's time for us to see the value inside of the sword and the shield. So we all have the sword and the shield. But how do we use the sword? Well, the sword is the most important attribute and characteristic, because the sword is the only offensive weapon. Everything that you have is defensive. It's designed to protect. But once you tap into, again, your diakonia, that becomes not only a shield, but it also becomes a sword. And so your job is to wield the sword. Your job is to use your sword. Your destiny and your diakonia is your sword and your shield. And the moment that you're able to tune in and really, really, really over and understand what that really means, not only do you have protection in the form of a shield, you also have projection. You also have the ability to generate, to operate and correct or project. So in other words, you don't have to walk around like no poor critter anymore. You have the ability to call those things that are not as though they were. You have the ability to stand and having done all stand. Because greater is he that's in you than he that's in the world, because you have been given everything that you need for life and godliness. It's inside of you. So your job is to operate and vibrate at a higher level. And the way that you do that is by reading through your Diakonia report, looking at the numbers that make up your life optimization circle, understanding the 12 attributes and characteristics that's inside of each number. There's 12 attributes and characteristics for 1, 2, the number 3, the number 4, number 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, even the number 0. And your report has 12 numbers. Each one of those 12 numbers have 12. That's a lot of attributes and characteristics. That's a lot of firepower. So brothers and sisters, none of us have an excuse, because we have been fearfully and wonderfully made. It's just time now for us to step in and to walk in our God-given destiny. And the way that you do that is by tuning in instead of tuning out. Because the worse things start to get externally, the more important it's going to become for you to learn how to tune in internally. So the things I've been talking about since I started just 20 plus years ago are becoming more and more relevant as the economy and politics and gas prices and food and everything starts going to left. It's going to be more important for you to tune in so that way you can tune out. Man, I love you. Appreciate it. Thank you for joining me on tonight's show. We'll see you mañana. God bless.